This is Nathan Smith from Fake News Watch, analyzing the media based on the 3 pillars of fake news: lies, bias, and malice. And today we have a sterling example of bias coming to you from NPR. Their story, Poll: 6 in 10 disapprove of Trump's declaration of a national emergency. Well, let's dig in and see how fake we can get. More than 6 in 10 Americans disapprove of President Trump's decision to declare a national emergency. Well, we already have a problem. This is some seriously imprecise language. It's more than 6 in 10 Americans polled disapprove. And as we'll see, based on the methodology of these polls, that is a very big distinction. So let's look at the number. Democrats vastly against, Republicans vastly for, independents split somewhere down the middle, leaning Democrat, which probably tells us more about the methodology of the poll than anything else. But let's see what they say. Nearly 6 in 10 also don't believe there's an emergency at the southern border and that the president is misusing his presidential authority. They also believe that his decision should be challenged in court. Wow. Well, thank you, 800 anonymous people, for deciding what is constitutional law. This is the absolute worst. This is definitional fake news. And why? Because it's not something that should be in this story. It's not something that's relevant. It's not interesting. There's nothing about this that is not a totally different story that we asked 10 lawyers and they gave their opinion on challenging the executive order. The popularity of a decision and its legality are completely separate ideas, and putting them together shows why fake news is dangerous. This concept is dangerous to our democracy because claiming that a bunch of people on the street should know whether or not something should be challenged in court is outrageous. And the guy who wrote this, Dominique Montagnard, whatever, he should be embarrassed. Now let's keep reading because it gets even worse. All things related to the declaring of a national emergency, the president is striking out in the court of public opinion, says the director of the Marist Institute. Wrong. He seems to be doing very well with Republicans. Let's validate this statement. Let's just do it. All things related to the declaring of a national emergency, the president is striking out in the court of public opinion. All things. This is just wrong. This doesn't even rise to the level of fake news. This is just being wrong. Republican and Trump supporters are firmly with the president, while Democrats and independents disapprove. And that is the real result of this poll. It's the same as all the polls have been with Trump. A nation divided straight down the middle. Now let's look at this. Because they start talking about the job performance. So we're going to start with the job performance survey. Now, the reason we're doing this is that this is the primary survey, and most of these other ones are based on this data and based on the same kind of sampling ideas. So there's a lot here, and we can get some of the biases. This is a mobile sample reached through random dialing of landline phone numbers. So that's interesting. But then we get to the results for the subset are statistically significant within 4.2 percentage points. So that's not great. But Here we go. There are 324 Republicans and Republican-leaning independents, and 417 Democrats and Democrat-leaning independents. So that is roughly 34% Republican and 56% Democrat. Now let's just do a sanity check here. If the country was 56% Democrat, we would not ever have a Republican president. It would be statistically impossible. But given that we do have a Republican president, that means that this poll is wildly biased. It's biased to the point where you need to almost reverse these numbers. If President Trump's approval is 39%, where you have 56% of Democrats sampled, and the disapproval is 53%, where you have 34% Republicans sampled, you can basically flip that. For this poll, we might as well say that the approval is 53% and the disapproval is 39%. It's all meaningless. This is a meaningless garbage poll. And their other poll, which this story was directly related on, is also garbage. And it is totally fake news. And we don't have to go past the second page. Party identification: 34% Democrat, 26% Republican, 37% Independent. Well, you already oversampled Democrats by 8%. And if we dig in deeper, Republican men 13%, Republican women 13%, Democrat men 14%, Democrat women 20%. And we know that President Trump performs particularly poorly with Democrat women. This poll is a trash fire, and they should be embarrassed, and frankly, there needs to be a huge label on this when you click on this story: fake news, because this is bad. Let's see. Finally, we have some truth here in this story. This is not a break his base issue. This is a reinforce his base. So to sum it up, not many beyond his base like this. Not relevant. It's unprecedented, and Americans are very polarized. Well, we're definitely polarized, and we're polarized because of articles and people and polls like this. And this is exactly why this channel is here, to expose stuff like this masquerading as real news. People are sharing it out as real news, and it is totally and completely fake. Well, that's all for this time. Make sure you like, subscribe, and click the little bell for notifications, because we're going to come to you every day with more and more fake news, and I guarantee that it'll get a lot worse.